top hats. As a lot of people probably know, I've been making really quite beautiful waistcoats for rich people and very nice people to get married in. And of course, people don't really wear top hats at weddings anymore, although the father of the bride and the groom might. But there's no obligation for people to wear top hats at weddings. So the only people that wear them now is where you have to wear them, which is in the enclosures at Royal Ascot. Now, you can turn up at Ascot in your lovely brand new sort of Porsche or something and not get noticed at all. Turn up in a vintage Bentley and you get admiring glances. It's a bit the same with top hats. Unfortunately, the new Chinese felt hats are not all that elegant. But if you haven't got a silk hat, you're going to have to make one of those. Now, silk hats, the last one was made, I think, in 1963. I think it was Herbert Johnson made the last one. It's a special silk velvet, and 1963 was when the velvet ran out, so I'm told. Now, it's not an ordinary velvet. It's, if you imagine velvet is like a lawn that's just been mowed, and but the silk plush is, if you imagine a lawnmower that does one long blade and one short one, one long one, short blade, that creates a wispy effect that you can brush around on a cardboard frame and make a nice hat out of it. So this really beautiful stuff which will never ever be made again. Now, there was one guy who supplied the whole world with this silk plush, some French chap. And I think the machine was being moved from one place to another. It got dismantled. It just never got mantled again. Now, the British government heard about this, and diplomatic hats and Royal Naval bicorn hats and things have this same silk plush on the sides. And the British government, or somebody, Home Office or whatever, said, "Okay, oh boy, what's it going to cost to get you back in business?" I think the price he gave them was like, we can get a battleship for that kind of money. So that was it. That was the end of black silk plush. It will never happen again. So we'll never see the skills that went into making this kind of hat, and we'll never see this material again. I've often thought that on one of my trips to China, I'd like to tackle some Chinese hat manufacturer and make a nice, lightweight, felt, elegant shaped hat with a proper leather lining headband and a proper silk thing. Now, silk is really cheap in China. I mean, it doesn't cost even £1 to put a real silk lining in. And they've got a lot of pigskin in China. They eat a lot of pork. So, you know, pigskin lining instead of a plastic one would be much nicer. This hat is supplied to Harrods, but I can tell it's made by Lock. I recognise this white sweatband inside. That's Lock signature. So when Locks used to make hats, I think this was one of theirs. These sell on size. If you've got a big head, you might be in a long queue waiting for a size 7.5, and you might have to pay thousands for it. If you've got a very tiny head, you might pick up one for a couple of £100. This one is about my size. It's a 7 1/8, but it's not the right shape. See, that's a problem with top hats. Not just getting the right circumference, it's got to be your head shape as well. There was a thing called a conformator for people that did bespoke hats, made-to-measure hats. I'm going to go into that later because it was quite fraudulent. But yeah, this hat, it sort of fits me, but rocks from side to side because it's a bit too wide and not quite long enough for my long head. So I can put it on, but it's a bit contrived to get a nice fit. They get dusty if you keep them out of the box. And what you give them the white with is not as any kind of stiff brush, and never get any water on them. But quite often you would supply like a little velvet pin cushion, and you use that to wipe counterclockwise around the hat. I'm going to use the sleeve of this old, already slightly damaged velvet jacket, and just a soft velvet rag like that will take all the dust out of it and leave it nice and combed in the right direction. You might even see the dust coming out of there. It looks like smoke coming out. And again, counterclockwise around the hand, and you put a nice shine on it like that, and in the top, so get all that dust off the top there, and that looks a little bit better. Now, top hats can sort of lose their blackness, especially the felt band around there. There's a product that's made for sort of toning up black suede shoes. Very high viscosity. Does say on the can, cannot harm any fabrics. And if you give your hats, it also works on felt bowler hats. If they're a little bit grey, give them a spray with that, let them dry off, and it really makes them look 10 times as good. I'll show on another video. I'll show people how to do that. When you get these old hats, they've frequently got initials actually stitched onto the band on the inside, or just stuck in like that. Hats look pretty similar, so when you go to the cloakroom, you want to make sure you get your own hat back, and so people would put their initials in. Caps. Caps are absolutely bloody brilliant. If you're a manufacturer, you make a suit, you've got like half a metre left. You can get maybe 3 caps out of that, certainly get 2, depending which one. The 8-piece cap, which Peaky Blinders has made incredibly popular, that's used out of tiny scraps. Now, the history of caps, this is the brilliant thing about them. In Victorian times, you had companies that did caps and schoolboy trousers, and that was a popular thing. Small garments that you could make from scraps purchased by the sackload, purchased by weight, from bigger manufacturers that made coats and overcoats and what have you. Now, the outer fabric they get from suit and coat makers, the lining from suit and coat makers. This stuff here, it's called Petersham, they got from corset makers. Everybody wore corsets in Victorian times, and so you could buy this stuff as scraps. Now, inside this cap, if it's made properly, there's an internal lining which is a piece of hessian. It was very breathable. And of course, everything was delivered in sacks in Victorian times, from coal to vegetables and everything else. So all these things, the hessian, the outer, the inner, this Petersham, all available as scraps from manufacturers. But now, if you buy a modern cap, you can't do this with it, because there's a big lump of plastic in the peak. Even the expensive ones you buy in these plastic peaks, and they're not really all that comfortable. What those clever Victorians did, everything was made out of leather. There are saddlers everywhere. There's a crescent-shaped piece of saddle leather in there, boot leather in there, which they'd get from boot and saddle manufacturers. And so when you put this on your head, if it's made properly, this flexes to the shape of your head. It's not a rigid lump of plastic inside there. And you can truthfully claim, if you make a cap like mine, that they're completely renewable recycling materials. This lining in this particular one is actually some Chanel ball gown silk. I bought some surplus silk from some people, and it said Chanel on it, so I presume this silk was going to be made for a ball gown or something. So I get rid of all these little bits of corduroy left over from trousers. This lining here, this is silk, but in all my suits I use a cotton twill lining, same as the military tailors. But yeah, the caps are absolutely brilliant for getting rid of all the old rubbish that you have in the factory. Also skirts, but I'll go into skirts later. Yeah.